One of the things with Common Core is the equity across all schools, all consistency. So the idea that a third grader in Kaukauna, and people move. It's not uncommon that job changes, whatever, where you're going to end up and you're in Appleton or you make that move. You should expect that with Common Core that those basic standards, not the how, but the what, is consistent across those areas. The clarity, the standards are very focused, they're very clear, you will learn this by this grade. It provides that consistency for teachers, for administrators to know that it's happening in each classroom. It helps with that. And the collaboration part of it is, there has been a lot of collaboration on this. This isn't something that happened over a summer. This is several years in the making where districts have worked together to make sure that we're being consistent across our state. And I think that's very helpful. And I guess when you look at that map and you see 45 states have adopted it, that idea that a kid moves to I don't know, Colorado, that you should be able to expect that, your third grader that left Wisconsin at this point shouldn't be in light years behind or ahead by moving to another state that's doing those same consistent things. And that's really a big part of it. We do have a lot of movement in our schools, and that idea, even within, in my experience in Kaukauna, you've got a kid coming from Little Chute, and you would think it would be not a big deal, but sometimes they're either way ahead of us or way behind us. And so the idea of that consistency, that clarity is helpful. The what, again, is those specific standards at each grade level in math and reading. So that's what students will learn. The how is the part that I think sometimes people get confused about with Common Core. And a really good example is in our district. As probably most of you know, I'm also principal of one of our charter schools in Kaukauna. Okay? Both of our charters do the same. They're both meeting Common Core in ELA and math. Okay? But they're very different from our other schools. So a lot of times I think people think, well, Common Core means every school is going to be teaching exactly the same, the how they do things. And that's not the case. You still have that same creativity as a teacher to individualize instruction for kids, to meet those special needs that a child might have. It's still very much local in that way. We still adopt our curriculum. We're doing some work with our staff in ELA to provide, to meet those Common Core state standards. Our reading specialists have been doing just a ton of work over the last couple of years to find materials that work for our kids, that work for here in Kaukauna. And that's not the same as anywhere else. We're investing a lot of money as a district to make sure that we have the right materials. But there's nobody saying that you have to use this textbook. As a district, we decided to do math expressions. But we looked at a lot of different things before we did that. There wasn't anybody that said you had to do that series. So I think that's one of those, in my mind, misinformation that's out there that just means everybody's the exact same and there's no local control. I mean, I feel like we've got a lot of control over what we decide to do in the classroom. And then just the when, and that's really, that's what we're going to get to next, is the progress report part. How do we measure when kids meet those standards?
So we've had 1 year under our belts of it. This is our second year, and now we're trying to figure out how to make our progress reports match the standards that we're teaching. So our progress reports, when you get them, you should be coming home shortly. They're going to look a little different, and that's what I want to go over with you today. The progress reports across the district are aligned in reading and in math to the standards. The standards, again, are the end of the year expectations. So that's the goal, that's where we expect kids to be at the end of the year. So if you think about when we're reporting out the first quarter, the progress, what we're expecting to see there, we're not expecting mastery of anything. We have a whole year to go. So it's really going to be, what you should see is a gradual increase in your kids' mastery of these skills. NAs, you're going to see some NAs on the report card. Not every standard is taught within every quarter or every unit. So don't be concerned that NAs are there. It's not that your kid hasn't done something, it's just our units are designed so that we introduce standards at a specific time throughout the year. So they may have not covered certain things. And that's consistent across the district. The NAs are established by reading specialists and math coaches. So it's not like teachers are deciding, we're not going to teach this time. They're deciding, it's decided across the district what standards we focus on and when. And the progress report should then give a pretty accurate portrayal of where your kids are at meeting those end of the year standards. So the scale that you're going to see is different than what we used to have. We used to have a 3-point scale. Now we've gone to a 4-point scale on the progress reports. So your kids are going to receive a 4 if they are exceeding the grade level expectation. That's the end of the year expectation. So you're probably not going to see very many 4s on report cards at this time of the year. That's what we would expect. A 3 is that they're meeting end of the year grade level expectations. We have 3 quarters of the year left to go, and so we're really not expecting that kids are going to be 3s either. A 2 is inconsistently meeting, which we determine to be developing. And that's where we expect a lot of our kids to be. If they're going to be working on this standard throughout an entire year, and they're going to be growing as readers to master that end of the year text complexity, the majority of our kids are going to fall in that 2 category. And so we've done a lot of talking with our students here at school about how a 2 is not something to be ashamed of. A 2 is really where we expect them to be. We expect kids to be developing at this point of the year. And then a 1 would be if they're not meeting those end of the year expectations. This is what a sample progress report would look like within reading. And this is just a snippet. So the standard statements are listed out on the left-hand side. So if we look at one of the standards within reading, is ask and answer questions explicitly related to the text. A student might receive a 2. That would be the developing. They're right where they need to be on this standard at this point of the year. If you look at the next one, determine the main idea and message. We haven't taught it yet, so it's an NA. And then the last one, make connections between characters, events, and or information. A student received a 1, and that's okay. A lot of times kids are receiving 1s within standards because we haven't taught it in its entirety yet. So within each one of these standards for reading, there's 2 components. They have to master it within literature, and they have to master it within nonfiction or informational text. And so a student who received a 1 may have only been able to master a part of that. They were able to connect to characters. But when they turned to the nonfiction text, they weren't able to make connections between the information and the paragraphs in the book. And so they received a 1. The progress report is going to give you a snapshot of where they're at towards meeting end of the year expectations. Conferences are going to give you the information on how they're doing in the classroom at that specific time. So don't be concerned. Don't panic. When you go to conferences, you can talk with the teachers about why a kid received a 1 for that specific standard, and they're going to be able to tell you very clearly, we haven't taught that part yet. Second quarter, then you'd see that the progression changes, and we expect most kids to go from 2s to 3s, 1s to 2s, and then we expect them to be towards the end of the year. Hopefully, all of our kids are 3s or 4s. That's what we're aiming for. And this is just what I talked about here, that some of those standard statements have multiple parts. And so they're doing really well on one part, but they haven't got it all yet. And all the pieces of the puzzle aren't there. So they may be receiving 1s and 2s until all the pieces are taught and all the pieces are assessed. The thing that's really important here is not what the Common Core is or how we're assessing it, but how are we teaching it in our schools. And so we've done a lot of work here at Haen to make sure that we are teaching and preparing our kids for their future. And so when we talk about standards here at Haen, we've come up with a target system. So So on a weekly basis, our teachers meet and they determine weekly standard targets within reading and math. And those targets are shared with the students in the form of I can statements. So you may have noticed in the last couple weeks or months, your newsletters may have I can statements for certain subjects. Or newsletters, separate newsletters might be coming home with these grade level, these weekly targets on them. The targets are very clear, they're very consistent, they are taught, they are referred to, they are displayed throughout lessons. We're holding kids accountable. If it says I can explain an illustration, that's what they're working on for the whole week, and they understand that that's their goal. That's what we're expecting their outcome to be. We also then have, we display the targets, the right-hand side picture, your left is what it would look like in the classroom. We also display our weekly targets for everyone upon entering our school, so that they know upon walking into any classroom what kids are working on and reading in within math. So today, when you head into your classroom, you should have each picked up a handout. It has the goals for that specific, the targets for that specific week. So we're coming towards the end of the week. The little arrow statement, though, is the target that you can expect teachers to be teaching to today in the classroom. So when you go in, you know what standards they're working on, what the kids are being held accountable for, and what the end product's supposed to look like.
Shared with you is from the National PTA. It's a pretty good example of, if you look at the whole document, you just grabbed one for your grade level probably, but if you actually go to the website, and I think we'll have some copies of the full document available, you'll actually see a target in reading and in math, K through 12. And it's really kind of gives you a better perspective. So there's a lot of information out there. I guess the other thing is, if you do have questions or you want to dig deeper into Common Core or how we're working on instruction here at Haen, please talk to me. We can set up a time, we can talk more about it. We've thrown a lot of information at you, but this is really what every school in Wisconsin, if you're a public school in Wisconsin, you're doing something like this right now, because it is different across the state. It's a lot of effort by teachers across the state to align things and make it a better product. And I really do think that it is rigorous, it is relevant, and it really is making our instruction better here at Haen.